りおしまい。
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Get the Mic, the only show where your host on the left, Owl,
and your host on the right, Brock,
dissect fiction for its mythological significance. On this episode, we are talking about Dragon Ball, as usual. In particular, Dragon Ball episode 93, which is called Equally Strong, Tien Shinhan versus Jackie. Or Jackie Chun versus Tien, I think it is, in the English.
Yes.
But before we get started, if you like what you hear, please give us a like. Subscribe to our channel. We upload new episodes on Mondays and Thursdays on YouTube, Tuesdays and Fridays on Rumble. We'd love to see you on Rumble as well. If you agree or disagree, leave a comment. We would like to hear what you had to say. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get straight into it. Equally Strong, Tien Shinhan versus Jackie. So as the contestants settle from Goku's amazing performance against Pomput, the Crane School decides to test Jackie Chun's strength, Tien's next opponent. So they're all sitting there, and they see the Go crew arrive in the courtyard. And they see that Jackie Chun leaves the rest of the group, heading towards the shops of the Peachy girls. And so they follow him there, and they get Chaozu to use his psychic powers to fire a toy gun's cork at Jackie Chun. Jackie Chun ducks just in time, coincidentally staring at a shopkeeper's breasts and distracted by that when it happens. When he returns, Goku is adamant that he'll defeat Tien, and while Tien thinks the same thing of Goku.
There's a couple of things about this part that I think are worth pointing out. I don't think it's coincidental that the way that Jackie Chun avoids Chaozu's attack,
seemingly
coincidentally, yeah. Well, he avoids the attack by being distracted by the shopkeeper's breasts. What Chaozu is doing there is he's taking something that's supposed to be play, and he's turning it into malice. And when he does that, at the same time that he does that, Jackie Chun is talking to someone who's like a carnival salesperson, right? They're sort of like, it's this shopkeeper who's been selling these T-shirts. It says in the original translation, she's been selling T-shirts to girls, and he wants one of the T-shirts. In the English, it's something different.
Yeah, baseball caps.
But he specifically wants a girl's T-shirt, right? It's like basically he wants a girl's panties, like he always does, right?
Well, I think,
or he wants to get it for one of the girls.
Yeah, because remember the last time we saw him get a shirt for Bulma, This time Launch is here, so maybe it's for
Right.
Launch. Who knows?
But it is his lechery that keeps him from being hit by the attack that turns that immature play into a malicious
Well,
thing.
and that's another thing, and I like the imagery of the gun too because it reinforces what we've been saying about Chaozu, saying that he's a kid who's found his dad's gun. Literally, here he's turning a gun into a weapon.
He's turning a toy gun, right?
Hmm.
Because what happens to spell out the progression is that there's a little boy riding on his dad's shoulders, and he keeps taking a little pop gun with a cork on the end of it and saying bang bang and firing it, pretending like he's shooting at people. And then Chao Tzu manipulates one of them and makes the cork fly off the end of it and go towards Jackie Chun.
And so, because that has its origins in play, the whole integration of Jackie here, where he is kind of playing along with this idea of going to the Peachy Peachy Gals, all that stuff that we see from the kind of courtyard scene in the beginning, is in that same spirit, and therefore he's not going to be able to be harmed by it.
And he is not harmed by it in a weird way, in the sense that when he ducks in to stare at her breasts, she slaps him, but then she apologizes to him. And he acts like he didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing, and it doesn't make sense unless you take it into account that Jackie Chun is good.
Hmm.
He's not like Roshi where he's disintegrated, and it's okay for him in a weird way, right?
Yeah, he's not trying to grab her breast. He didn't touch her breast beforehand or grab her ass or anything like that, right? Like Roshi might have done.
Right.
He was just living in that time and having
He's lecherously admiring, and it doesn't really spell it out in a logical way, but it seems weird until you kind of take it into that what would I say, the context of it, which is that it's not Roshi, it's Jackie Chun,
right.
right?
And that's the
And she
thing
says,
is we have to.
sorry you surprised me," right?
Mhm. And he's
Um
just like, why? Why'd you do this?
which is to say that his maturity protects him from the immaturity, or to say that his I'm trying to verbalize it in a way that's really specific. It's the propensity of for that the spiritual father to be directed, for his attention to be directed in that way, protects him from something like the malice of someone who's immature that doesn't understand it.
And I
Because
think too, one of the reasons is because here we see Chaozu manipulating play, where Roshi is actually being harmonious with play. He's playing at being Jackie Chun, and therefore
or Jackie
is
Chun is playing
superordinate
at
to
being
that.
Roshi in a sense.
Fair enough, right? Okay, either way, right? Yeah, yeah, and I think that's it. And so the last thing I do want to mention here before we move on is the fervor that Goku and Krillin have against Tien for Yamcha's defeat, and then Tien having the same fervor against Goku for killing Tao Pai Pai. Jackie Chun comes in between them and says that he's not going to lose so easily. They're both dependable young fighters, so they shouldn't worry about it. Um, but Goku definitely says like, "You can't win because I have to beat Tien. I promised
Goku
Yamcha I
knows.
would." Yeah.
Goku knows that it's going to come down to that because it's almost like he made a prophetic promise, right?
Hmm.
One thing to point out is Blue Launch is back.
Yes, Blue launches back from the last episode.
So it's kind of keeping that continuity from episode to episode as to which launch we have present. It's not just a gag,
And
right?
which launch is necessary at the time.
Yeah. Um, and I think that if Blonde Launch was present at the time, whenever Roshi as Jackie Chun goes to try to like chase after the Peachy Peachy gals, it wouldn't be the same scenario. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because Blonde Launch is wise to the way that Roshi acts, and it would be very recognizable. But Blue Launch wouldn't really see anything about that.
She has that ability to overlook, right? The nakedness of the spiritual father, the vulnerabilities and the flaws therein. So, there is something in the dub I like here. I think I mentioned this last episode that we were going to talk about it. So, in it, in this set of scenes, we see Tien look at the board of competitors, and he focuses it on Goku's name, and he says, "This is my path, my sole purpose now."
Right.
And
The
that's important. It's
He
not in the sub,
specifies
it's in the
that,
dub
yeah,
only.
he specifies that this is a step, that he's not focused on stopping Jackie Chun. He doesn't really know who Jackie Chun is. He just knows previous world champ, I'm aiming above that
Mhm.
towards something that's a personal vendetta for my master, right? And it's more
Yeah.
vindictive in that sense, and I don't think that it's the right path for him,
But
right?
it also shows that he's on that same black nimbus cloud that Tao was
Exactly.
on,
That's what
right?
that's what I mean. It's not the right path
Yeah.
because he has angled himself towards something that's not being number one under the heavens, something else.
Mhm. And so, we're gonna see how that transpires, but I think that's an important thing in the dub because I think in the sub he says, like, "I'll kill Son Goku," or something like that.
Right.
But to say that it's his purpose,
To explicate it, right?
it also characterizes him in the way that we've been talking about, to where he is an enlightened being that is intentionally taking the improper path.
And that's something that Tao Pai Pai is able to do as well.
Right. And so that's kind of all set up for the match between Tien and Jackie. And so finally the match begins, and Tien rushes Jackie, delivering a volley of attacks. Jackie, using the force of his charge, throws Tien out of the ring. However, Tien, using the crane technique, flies back into the ring. And this is when Jackie decides to take it up a notch, and he uses multiple after images to attack Tien. Tien, using his third eye, is able to see through Jackie's attempt, foiling it entirely. So, a couple things to talk about here. Firstly, Jackie Chun tells him, and I like it in the dub. I don't remember exactly what he said in the sub, but in the dub, he says you shouldn't worry so much; it'll make you lose your hair. And it's funny on
He says,
mul.
"Don't be so apprehensive" in the
There you
sub.
go, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so it's funny because we know that Jackie Chun
There's
is
also a weird
Roshi's
shot there where it
bald.
almost seems like the coloring is off. It'll probably rotate back through, but I was
Oh,
just,
the purple guys?
yeah, like what
Yeah,
is up
it's
with that?
really
It's
strange. I
almost
don't
like a
know.
different time of day whenever it shows them.
It's true.
But yeah, I do like that because there's this thing about it where Tien is taking it too seriously and Jackie Chun knows it. Because Jackie Chun knows that he's trying to look past him to a different goal. And Jackie Chun is like, sufficient are the worries of the day, not the
Yes.
worries of the morrow, right?
Right,
He's saying
exactly.
if you worry yourself, your hair will fall out. And maybe that's something that Roshi has done. He's worried himself on the things of the morrow rather than focusing on the things he knows he's supposed to worry about in the time.
And then it shows Tien's face, and he's got a scowl on, and then it shows Roshi's face, and he just looks tired, man.
Yeah,
He's just like a tired man.
he's uh he's got this look about him where he knows he's about to have to go through all of the different steps to get to the point where he's actually challenging Tien, right? It's like, okay, let's go through it. Let's see what level you're actually on.
And so he throws him out of the ring. And as we've talked about before, the whole idea of the crane school is that which can elevate uh, above, right, and look down upon those that are lesser, even if it's only by a hair, right? That's what we've been saying with Chaozu and things like that. And so, using that crane technique, Tien is not able to be thrown out. He is, by his own measure, so much greater that it doesn't really matter that he gets thrown out. He can just resume participation in the hierarchy because of his innate ability.
Yeah, I like the way it's animated first off, that it's very technical the way that Jackie Chun catches his moves and
His
perfectly
kick, yeah, and
spins
then
his
spins him
body
around.
around and then tosses him out of the ring, which is to say that that type of attack is so far below what fighting me is going to mean that I'm going to turn all of your momentum against you, right?
And that being right, what Tien's response to that is that like Tien's momentum is not something that can impede him, because the truth of the matter is that it's not getting in his own way to be on this path.
Right.
And so he's able to walk back into the ring. And that's when Roshi starts taking it a little more seriously. He makes like 8 after images and attacks Tien. Tien uses
Is
that.
it specifically 8 that he makes?
I think so, yeah.
Because it's funny, we see that Chaozu is outside trying to count to 8,
Yeah, I think that's 8. Yeah, that's why it's 8. The answer is 8.
and the Crane Hermit smacks him and says, "Stop trying to count. You don't need to count this out."
There's 8 of them, yeah.
And so we see a reflection of the same thing that Krillin did, right? Which is he used the after image technique to trick Chaozu. So it's establishing that this is the difference between Chaozu and Tien, because Tien uses his third eye to see the 8.
Right. He's enlightened enough to know, first of all, unlike Chaozu, about the malice that he wields. And then, second of all, he's able to see uh, Jackie Chun for who he is, the projected spirit of Jackie Chun, all those 8 projected spirits. Um, the enlightenment that Tien has been able to grasp, that being the paths of good and evil and choosing to take the evil path, can supersede the clouding of identity made by Jackie Chun's projection into these after images.
I do want to say in these clips, the reaction that Tien has to defeating the after image is that he uses the first attack that Grandpa Gohan uses against Goku when he meets him, which is he launches himself along the bottom of the arena and attacks him low.
Yeah.
And so he's articulating through his physicality an understanding that he has that's establishing even further how far he is in his journey. Right.
Right, exactly. He's at a point where he can attack from low, he can attack from high, right? He can subvert the idea of someone's being.
It's almost to say that he also has gone through this spiritual journey and he knows how low he can go, and he has
Well, that's
integrated
part of that enlightenment,
that
I would say.
deeper spirit of the father that's associated with the opposite end, let's say from Korin, right? So we see something intense happen right there, because he's got his arms in a cross shape and he comes at him from below, right? And it's like the cross, as we know, is the axis mundi. It is that, and so he does the attack that's like symbolic of what the whole journey into Baba's tower was supposed to be
Mhm.
immediately. So we're like, oh, if you know what you're kind of reading into, you see that Tien is already on a really high level of power.
Yeah, and we can also understand that by doing that, and actually I think he gets bested by Tien, or by Jackie in that exchange. But by doing that, he's exhibiting through his physicality the level of spiritual strength he's achieved, and being able to see through, like, the after image technique, being able to understand the projection of spirits versus the actual instantiation of one, is something that I would say is on the same level of Korin's teachings. And so being able to do that, and then being able to also use attacks like almost Grandpa Gohan's attack at that point,
Right.
it are indicators of the level of spirituality that he's existing on, the plane of existence, let's say. And so, yeah, I think that's a good place to move on to the last set. And so, at last, Jackie proclaims that he will take this seriously, and he buffs up and he bests Tien in another little exchange. And I think that might be the one we were just talking about.
Well, he specifically tosses away his shirt and then he buffs up, right? He reveals himself for his strength.
Yes. And so, after recovering from a devastating kick, Roshi grabs Tien's hands and then kicks him in the air. Roshi and everyone else thinks Tien is done. After Tien recovers from that, he rushes Jackie, and the two begin to brawl violently. Battered and bruised, each leaves the other out of breath as they exclaim the challenge before them. And Tien even chokes Jackie at one time. They do a couple flips, and he like suplexes him. It's a very violent fight. It's starting to get very um it's a slobber knocker, let's say.
Yeah. The stakes are being raised right here, because there's a really quick exchange they have where they just bruise each other immediately, and it's kind of to show that fact that they're both just there's a really funny viral video where guys are just punching each other in the face back and forth,
Hmm.
and it's just like that. They just keep punching each other, and they're not even trying to block at this point. They're just trying to overpower each other, and then they both come away battered and bruised. And it's like, okay, I've learned your strength. Let me try this then. Let me try this then. And at one point, Tien grabs Jackie Chun by the throat, and he's trying to force him out of the ring.
Yeah.
And there's like an animal, um,
An aggressive nature too.
there's
It's
an
malicious as
animosity.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's animosity. It's hatred almost, right? Like I'm gonna that's the whole idea of that choking thing, right? Is that the grabbing the most, let's say,
was
vulnerable
trying to cut
part,
off his spirit. Right,
right?
he's cut off his breath.
And disintegrating that and separating that from and breath is spirit, let's say, and separating that from the head of Chun. And so yeah, we see in this last little exchange they get way more serious really quickly. And it's easy to see here how the spiritual father and all he represents goes up against here, which we have almost like a quintessential anti-hero, someone who's choosing that wrong path intentionally.
Who is it that that Jackie Chun's shirt lands on when he throws it into the crowd?
Bulma.
Of course,
Had to
Bulma is
be Bulma.
blinded by it. Right.
Yeah. Because she still doesn't have a full grasp on
She
Roshi.
does. She has no comprehension of the type of strength that Roshi has or that Jackie Chun has,
And why it's important. I knew that. No. I mean, she was rooting for
especially after
Pomput a minute
yeah,
ago, so
especially after rooting for Pompa.
but
There's
we'll
this.
see. We'll see. I mean, Bulma's gonna grow up soon.
Well, there's. I love one thing I love about these early tournament arcs and what's missed a lot in later tournament arcs, not only in Z but in Super and other anime, is that it's supposed to be you're not just cutting away to the crowd to get reaction shots. They're supposed to be integrating the enlightenment from witnessing the things that the fights are supposed to represent.
That's why they're all watching the fights to begin with.
They need to come to understand the ideas that these fighters are trying to represent. And I like that about this, where when he says, I'm going to take this seriously, he takes his shirt off. I mean, it's a dramatic move, but it also is to show one of the first things we saw happen with Roshi. He did the same thing. He took his shirt off. He said, sexy, ain't I? Then he flexed and became big, and then he used the Kamehameha on Fire Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's doing it again. He's taking his shirt off. He's showing himself for his age and how frail he could be, and then showing his real spirit, showing who he really is, symbolically, like it's a part of the process for him, right?
Well, and it's a part of the process too to for him to understand the full extent of Tien's spirit, because
He has to be fully open
right, yeah,
to, he
the
can't guard
experience,
himself
right.
against Tien's malice. He needs to take
Well,
it on fully.
remember, he has trained with Korin.
Yes.
So naturally, this is what he would have to do. He is encountering the unknown right now here, in which it's kind of eerie because Jackie Chun is taking a very heroic response to this. He's encountering the unknown, right? Dealing with it the best he can, and then reformulating that unknown into order. And so now he needs to open himself up so that be he can be open to the solution that he needs. And actually, we're going to get into that in just a second. Because at the very end, he says that now it's the new generation that's taking over.
Not only that, specifically, he uses the same kick that he used when he thought he was fighting Goku. Whenever he was looking at the fighter that he wasn't really taking that seriously.
That's right, in the beginning,
And he
yeah.
kicks him upward, and then he falls down. He kicks Tien upward the same way, and we see that that Jackie Chun is surprised when it doesn't knock him out. So there's a little clue there that he thought, okay, this is the attack I would use to knock Goku out, and then he sees that Tien is stronger than he thought Goku was in that moment.
And that Goku, I mean, he already knows now that Goku's stronger
Of course,
than
now
he
he
thought,
knows,
yeah.
but still, there's a moment of surprise for him there when he uses that attack.
Definitely, yeah. And so we're going to see the conclusion of this next time. And I did want to mention, though, briefly, his remark about how the next generation is up and coming, right, is that idea that's transmitted to him by opening himself up to it. Opening himself up to the experiences of the world, to the unknown, by taking off his jacket, has already at the end of this episode led him to the conclusion that the information being provided to him indicates that this is not his fight to have.
That it is Goku's fight, like Goku said.
Right. And so it's right now just starting to be processed to him, and we're going to see how that looks next time more.
Mm-hmm.
As the next episode is called Stepping Down. So
yeah,
it's pretty poignant. But I think this is a good place to stop.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
No, I think it was a pretty quick but meaningful episode.
Very vicious in the fight and the animation. And I think that's also to display how each of these characters can then wield that malice that they've integrated. Tien integrating it maliciously, or let's say Tien integrating it in an unholy manner, whereas Roshi has integrated it in a holy manner. But they both integrate it, and they're both able to wield it. They're both able to bruise each other.
Yeah.
And
they damage each other.
And they definitely damage each other. And I mean, Tien chokes them right there. So, but yeah, I think that's a good place to stop. So if you liked what you heard, please give us a like, subscribe to our channel. We upload new episodes Mondays and Thursdays on YouTube, Tuesdays and Fridays on Rumble. Give us a subscribe over there. If you agreed or disagreed, we'd like to hear what you had to say in the comments, so please leave a comment. Other than that, though, I'm your host on the left, Owl.
I'm your host on the right, Brock.
And we hope you guys have a good night.